And finally this evening, if you don't know what a 100-year-old Wookiee is, he or it is seen here on the left, chances are you're going to find out. Douglas Kiker reports.
In the late 1970s, space fantasy films were in high demand thanks to the success of Star Wars. So when Hollywood stuntman Dean Preston finished his movie script, Space Pets, he knew there was only one person that he wanted to read it, George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. He quickly, with the help of a friend, did some rewrites to polish up the script, and then his friend dropped it off in the mail to send off to George Lucas in 1978. Dean waited and heard nothing back from George Lucas or Lucasfilm Limited, so he went on with his life. As Dean fell into his role as a television assistant, George Lucas was hard at work making the sequel to the biggest movie of all times.
The sequel to Star Wars is here. It's called The Empire Strikes Back, and George Lucas has the story.
The Empire Strikes Back premiered in May 1980 and was without a doubt a huge success like the original film. This proved that Star Wars was not just a fluke. The sequel's success helped Star Wars become the pop icon it is today. A few short years later in 1982, Dean Preston had moved on with his dreams of making his own space fantasy film and was sitting in traffic on a highway in Northern California. Sitting there looking at the car in front of him, he noticed something that made little sense to anyone else. There in front of him was a car with a vanity license plate that read Ewok. That was a word he knew well, a word that he made up for a furry little bear creature in his script, Space Pets. Shocked, Dean had to find out who the driver of the car was and why he chose that name for his license plate. He followed the car until the driver noticed and pulled over. He waited in the car to see who would exit. Finally, the driver stepped out of the car along with the passenger. He was a little taken back as two dwarfs exited the car and walked over to him. Dean asked him about the license plate and how they came up with the word Ewok. The driver told Dean that they both had just finished working on the next Star Wars movie where they both played a teddy bear-like alien creature called Ewoks.
We are the
Dean would later tell a Canadian courtroom that he felt a funny feeling in the bottom of his stomach, and he knew without a doubt that his script had reached George Lucas, and he used the name that Dean came up with, a play on the word he walks, Ewoks. And he even used his creation of a teddy bear race of aliens. Dean quickly contacted his lawyer, and the fight to get the credit as the creator of the Ewoks started.
one big happy family.
First, his lawyer contacted Lucasfilm Limited, who denied Lucas ever read Dean's script. The battle took 7 years, but in 1980, Dean would finally be able to tell his story in a courtroom in front of George Lucas himself. In court, Lucasfilm lawyer and staff testified no script sent to them was ever given to George Lucas, as they would not allow George Lucas to read any unsolicited manuscript because doing so could lead to major legal problems such as this. Lucasfilm employee Jane Bai testified she opened every piece of mail addressed to Lucas to protect him, and secretary Betty Alsop testified she would return unsolicited manuscripts back to the sender unread. Star Wars illustrator and storyboard artist Joe Johnston told the courtroom that he helped design the Ewoks. He said that in 1980, George Lucas described to him his plans for a small teddy bear warriors, but never used the term Ewok. Lucas told him that he wanted them to be small, furry, and clear they were the good guys.
The Ewoks add their touch of magic.
Dean's friend David Hurry took the stand to testify that he edited and helped polish up Dean's script, Space Pets, in 1978, and he was the one that mailed it to George Lucas that same year. Dean would also take the stand to testify that he was the one that came up with the name Ewoks, and he came up with how the teddy bear native alien race would look like. Then it was time for the man himself, George Lucas, to take the stand.
The defense calls George Lucas.
George Lucas!
Lucas testified that his Ewok and the ones created by Dean are similar only in a gross sense. They both have fur, they both walk on 2 feet, and they both are an alien race that lived in a forest. Other than that, and the name, there was nothing else to say. When it came to the name Ewoks, George Lucas said that he created hundreds of names, and doing so mostly by just playing with words. Lucas testified that his first plan was to have the forest natives be Wookiees like Chewbacca, but once he had Chewbacca know how to fly the Falcon, he knew Wookiees wouldn't be a good plan. So he made the Wookiee smaller, with shorter fur and larger eyes. He told the courtroom that the name Ewok was a play on the word Miwoks, the name of a California Indian tribe that once lived on the grounds where Skywalker Ranch sits today. As for the word Wookiee, Lucas told the courtroom that he made it up out of thin air. But over cross-examination, he admitted that the name came from disc jockey Terry McGovern, as he flubbed a line doing AR work for Lucas's THX 1138. That flub line was, and Lucas liked the sound of that so much, he used it for Star Wars. Finally, Lucas had his say, and Dean had his, and it was up for the courts to decide. After a few days, the court ruled in favor of George Lucas and Lucasfilm. Leaving the courtroom, Lucas had little to say to reporters, but he did tell them that being sued was the price he paid for having a hit movie. And he added there were no lawsuits after Howard the Duck. Dean, who was suing for $125 million in damages, was ordered to pay the legal fees for Lucas, his lawyers, 20th Century Fox, and Lucasfilm. In an interview 15 years after the trial, Dean said the whole thing is now a terrible memory for him, that it affected his life dramatically, and that many of his business plans were ruined and people walked away from him. And that's the feud between two Ewok creators. I want to thank you for watching. As always, please subscribe to the channel and click thumb up so I know you like my videos. And we'll be back very soon with more.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.